Welcome. You're listening to The Weather Lounge, a podcast by WeatherWorks. Get ready to explore the world of weather and connect with engaging guests, bringing you fun and thought-provoking stories of just how weather shapes our lives, sometimes in ways you've never imagined. So, join us as we unravel the mysteries of the atmosphere. Today's episode starts right now.
Well, hello, friends, and welcome back to the Weather Lounge. I'm your host, meteorologist Brad Miller, and our podcast comes to you, as always, from our WeatherWorks headquarters here in Hackettstown, New Jersey. And joining me today is fellow meteorologist, the one and only Jen Diorio. Jen, what's going on?
Not much, Brad. How are you?
Just enjoying the summertime rainy weather here in the Northeast.
This is true.
What's
At
going
least
on here?
I know. We got a little sun yesterday, though. I got to go to the beach, so that was nice.
Today's junk.
I know.
More rain tomorrow, and then
Yep.
it seems like we're stuck in this winter pattern here early in the summer, so we need to break this. I'm ready for some heat and humidity, actually.
I'm ready for heat. Humidity doesn't go good with the curly hair.
Yeah,
so.
I guess, yeah. But, of course, we love the weather, Jen, and, enough to make it our living forecasting it. And, of course, we look at model guidance all the time, soundings, a lot of other things to produce our fine forecasts here at WeatherWorks. But there's a whole nother part of the weather that comes after the forecasts are done.
Definitely, yeah. And that's the observation part. So, meteorologists across the country and around the world, for that matter, not only rely on weather observations through sensors and specialized equipment, but human observations as well.
Right, and of course, we all look on social media. I mean, we have a nice following on Instagram, Facebook, X, and as does a lot of other folks, including just weather hobbyists and folks that just enjoy doing their own forecasts and things like that. But of course, these areas are full of weather observations, photos, plenty of video. There's a very important program out there called CoCoRaHS. Now, it's a funny name, but it's an acronym for Community Collaborative Rain, Hail, and Snow Network. So joining us today in the Weather Lounge from CoCoRaHS in Colorado is Noah Newman. Noah, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me, Jen and Brad. This is an honor to be here.
Yeah, so give us a little background, Noah. Just what do you do there? How did this all come about?
Yeah, so I started with CoCoRaHS actually in 2008, but I was with Colorado State University in Fort Collins, Colorado, where CoCoRaHS is housed. I was with CSU since 2004. I was actually working for a different citizen science project called the Globe Program, which was really focused on schools and teachers. And as I transitioned and started working for CoCoRaHS, I took kind of what I learned from working with schools and teachers and tried to transition that to CoCoRaHS. So I actually started in 2008 with the goal of getting schools involved with CoCoRaHS, but really I've really been involved with just all volunteers, not just teachers, but really all ages. We've got actually a ton of retired senior citizens who love CoCoRaHS, and that's actually my favorite group to work with, adults, as far as teaching how to measure precipitation. They're great.
So, I mean, of course, the name CoCoRaHS, we just explained what it meant, but I mean, how did this all come about? I mean, who came up just with, oh, let's start an observation kind of a site network thing, and we'll call it CoCoRaHS. I mean, I guess it is a community collaborative of all that stuff. It just seems like a neat acronym, kind of one that you never hear before.
Right. We definitely get the award for the wildest acronym, and we've even Googled it several times throughout the years and confirmed that it doesn't mean anything in any other language either. So that worked out for us. The acronym CoCoRaHS, funny enough, actually started with different words. It was not the Community Collaborative Rain, Hail, and Snow Network. It actually started as the Colorado Collaborative Rain and Hail Study. So initially, we weren't even touching snow. Snow is a little bit more difficult to measure, especially the snow water equivalent. And so initially, we were just doing rain and hail. And it was the volunteers that kind of demanded, hey, we can do snow, let me do snow. And on top of that, the volunteers also started coming from other states. We had Wyoming knocking on our door and New Mexico. And so instead of the Colorado Collaborative, we luckily, because our name Colorado starts with CO, we changed it to the Community Collaborative and then changed that study to snow. So the acronym stayed the same, even though the name behind it morphed over the first couple of years.
Well, we're very thankful at WeatherWorks that
Yes.
the that CoCoRaHS started including snow, because snow is obviously a big deal to us, especially with our certified snowfall totals. Relying on these human observations from CoCoRaHS and other sources is, a big deal and a big source.
We have over 10,000 locations now we're up to.
Probably even
something
more
like
than
that,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, so many
across the
zip codes.
country, and now we're into Canada as well. So
Yep.
yeah, it's a big help, of course. And now you're nationwide, of course. Now anywhere outside of the U.S., Noah?
Right, you mentioned it. We're in all 50 states and territories. Our most recent addition was Guam, but yes, we're also in Canada as well as the Bahamas. Um, but really, we just started as a small little organization, as I mentioned, in Colorado. It started from a flood event in 1997. It was really devastating. It hit our campus at Colorado State University with ending up with $200 million in damages.
Wow.
And 5 lives were lost.
Wow.
But in 1997, basically the way to assess a storm afterwards was what was called a bucket survey, where you're putting ads in the newspaper or basically even going around town knocking on doors asking if people had a bucket in their backyard. Can you stick a ruler in your bucket? And it took about 3 months to put together the rainfall map of how much rained and where in town. And because we only had one automated weather station in town at the time, and it was located about easily 5 miles away from the really where the heart of the storm was falling. And so at the automated station far away, they recorded about 2 inches of rain, which was a lot. But what we didn't realize and what we pieced together afterwards was upstream at the highest point in town, we received about a whole year's worth of rain.
Wow.
14 inches. And so that's what caused the flood. And throughout that bucket survey, people were like, hey, we've got this new internet thing going on. I'd put up a rain gauge if you wanted. And that's really how it all started.
Yeah. Now, I mean, CoCoRaHS, they go through the National Weather Service as well. I mean, how do most of your reports and everything come through? I mean, is it go through the CoCoRaHS site, or is it just through social media, or is it reported to the National Weather Service, the local National Weather Service?
No, it is. It's our website, and we also have an app, of course, as well. But people log into our website and they report their 24-hour precipitation amount, typically first thing in the morning. And then from there, it's the National Weather Service that taps into our database and uploads everything into their system.
Yeah, and Jen, you know this. Like when we do our certified snowfall totals, there'll be CoCo comments, as we call them, and most of them are normal. Like, hey, it rained heavy between now and now. I recorded 1.27 inches of rain. But once in a while, we'll get some goofy comments,
Funny
like
ones.
Squirrel stole my birdseed feeder again. Although other than that, it's been a nice morning. Have you ever seen any of that, Noah?
Oh, we love it. We really encourage comments, but we do remind people that they are public, and so
right. That's
course,
the thing. Yeah,
exactly.
And we'll screenshot them and we'll share them with the rest of our other meteorologists. Well, look at this CoCo comment from New Hampshire. Look at this CoCo comment from New Jersey. It's funny.
That's awesome. No, we get people writing poems and
I've seen a couple poems. Yeah,
yeah, or tracking their phenology. They'll talk about the first time that a certain tree will bud, or even the first that they see a bird come by or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So
I've
yeah,
seen ones like, oh, I had squirrel droppings in my rain gauge again this morning, something like that. It's like, oh my god.
I would get a couple when I was looking at Colorado CoCoRaHS, like a couple comments of couldn't take measurement this morning, elk were blocking my gauge or whatever the situation was. But yeah, those comments are really good. Like, I'm very impressed by the detail that some people can give in those comments. Like, I'm not home enough to know what's happening at exact what time or overnight. I'm very impressed on how they do that too. I'm like, oh my gosh, very dedicated.
yeah, and we encourage comments, but it's funny that there are times where we at headquarters are blown away that there is not a comment when we're looking at like the highest precipitation amount for the day, and someone got 6, 7, 8+ inches, and we go to their report and it's just like nothing, no comment at all. It was just a regular Tuesday for someone in Florida. But from my point of view, if I had 7 inches, boy, I'd be writing a novel. So
Well, yeah, and that's what's the beauty of all the Coco stuff, because it fills in those gaps, like you said. I mean, yeah, of course you have the METARs out there and the official, measuring stations, whether it's an airport or, just a regular METAR station. That's, but in between, a lot of stuff can happen, both winter and summer. Obviously, like you said, with that 1997 localized, heavy rain event, happens a lot in the Northeast with snow and snow showers. I mean, snow showers can miss a lot of METARs, but yet somebody may pick up a quick 2 to 3 inches, and we won't see that until we see the Coco comment the next morning. Of course, we'll match it up with radar, but we'll get the actual total. Like, I just had a quick 2 inch snow squall move through, and 5 miles away either side, they got nothing. So it helps us a lot with the certified snowfall totals.
we see it all the time. Just even a couple days ago in Texas, there was a 2+ inch report surrounded by zeros and traces, and the comments though said, "Hey, there was a thunderstorm that formed right overhead and then dissipated after it rained out." So that was that.
I guess that's useful a lot in the summer because we don't do as much in the summer with Coco Commons. Of course, we don't do the certified snowfall totals. We still use them, to look up things. But even like hail cores get missed by, but you'll get the comments from the Coco folks, and they'll have a wind gust to 60 versus anything around that. It was 40 to 50 maybe. So it's just it's very helpful, of course. Not only nowcasting, but just seeing what happened the next day.
I love it. I love that you're using our data. That's great.
Yeah. And then now, how does that tie into social media? Now, obviously, like I said, yeah, they go into the app. Now, I've seen, like, on both X and on Facebook, I'll see, Coco, uh, what is it, like Coco user so and so, but it'll go right into X a lot of times, or right into Facebook. I mean, does that also get fed from your app?
That does not. That is all happening organically. We've got folks that will submit a report and then they'll go brag about it on Facebook.
Right, retweet or re-X, or yeah, okay.
We've had goals of adding a button on our page after like your confirmation page that you could say share this on X or something like that. We've not implemented that yet,
Okay,
but
that's what I was getting at. Yeah, because it seems like and that's what's changed a lot with weather. At least, and I'm a little bit older, but since the mid '90s and going into now, it's a big difference from because of observations and phones and you know the social media aspect of things. When I came out of college and things like that, we were still on like die fax printers and things like that. But now everything is so up in front with weather, and there's so many folks out there, whether the weather hobbyists and social media folks that just constantly like to show maps and show videos, which are great, but sometimes we have to fight that because somebody may show something, oh, look at the forecast for tomorrow, 4 to 8 inches, and we got like 2 to 4, and we get calls, why am I seeing 4 to 8 inches and you guys are only 4? So it's kind of a you know
It's a blessing and a curse.
It is, and Jen and Mike know what I'm talking about when we forecast. But I think more so it's just a helpful with the social media with the observations, because it's just it just verifies whether we did well on our forecast or we didn't. Sometimes, it happens. But and if our forecast isn't going all that great, we'll of course update. But the observations are the ones that drive us to all that kind of stuff, and we'd be lost, like Jen said, with a lot of that stuff.
Well, and for how variable precipitation is, that's almost the impetus for people joining, is that they see on TV how much it rained, and that's coming from the airport, and they're like, that's not how much I got at my house. And so then they start investigating and learn about CoCoRaHS and set up a gauge and find out for themselves.
What does it take to like become
That's what I
a
was just gonna
CoCoRaHS
say.
members? Yeah. See, I read your mind, Brad.
Yeah. So yeah, what's the process? Like, if somebody is really interested in weather, they want to start doing their own stuff in their backyard.
Right. The one and only requirement, the one kind of non negotiable that we have, is that everyone has to use the same type of rain gauge. It's a manual gauge, and it's got precision to the nearest hundredth of an inch. So we're not allowing automated gauges that folks put up on their rooftops and maybe share with Weather Underground and things like that. It really takes human eyeballs, and you're physically reading the gauge and emptying out how much you had, and then entering that data that way. So that's really the one and only requirement. Other than that, we've got a philosophy of do your best when it comes to getting your rain gauge in the best spot. We know that people have, they're in a residential area, they've got trees, they've got dogs. Where do you put your rain gauge? And so what I like to tell people is that if your gauge can see the sky, you're doing something right. If you've got trees, do your best to get them in between. And there's some folks that really want to do it, but just don't have a reasonable place to put a rain gauge, and unfortunately just can't join. Generally it's a once a day, 24-hour report. You check it in the morning, and report your 24-hour total, but it's not, we don't want to be strict to say that you can never leave your house or go on vacation or anything. So we have what's called multi-day accumulation reports. So someone can submit what they found in their gauge after the weekend when they were gone, or a whole week of vacation, whatever it might be. And then we also, it's not required. We're, as much as we would love people to report once a day, every day, consistently, we're not coming after you if you miss it and you don't report. You are a volunteer, and so any day you submit data, you're helping out the weather enterprise.
Absolutely. Yeah, especially if there was an event, whether it was rain or snow. So I've noticed, and I'm sure Jen has and Mike has, like when you go to some of the Coco comments, and there'll be an edit / like a moderator. Who are those people?
Right. Well, we have two people on our staff that are responsible for the majority of the quality control of the data, and we typically will flag a suspect report. We will set it to NA, and then we will file a ticket where it goes off to the state coordinator. So if you live in New Jersey and we see that you may have entered a false zero, there's precip everywhere, and we're seeing a zero, we'll flag that and we'll send it off to the New Jersey coordinator, who can then contact that observer to confirm what happened.
Okay, so you have two like overall overseers basically, but then they'll branch off where they have to, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's a main moderator in each state, I guess.
Pretty much. But we also, it's not just the two human beings that are just looking over the data. We do have a few tools that they use where we're looking at radar estimates. We're looking at the nearest neighbor, and if you're 10 times higher than the people surrounding you, it'll at least have one of us look at it, and hey, maybe they put a comment, and maybe they said, hey, this amount is real, and then we leave it alone. But if it is suspect and we can figure out what we think went wrong, we will flag it, and we will follow up with the observer to find out what actually happened.
You've seen that, right, Jen? Where there's
Definitely.
yeah, and it's a lot of times it's just like a decimal point in the wrong place. Like, somebody got like 7 inches of snow around the area, and somebody put in 0.7 inches. That's usually when
Or
I'll
70.
see, like, right, 70, right? This can't be right, and like Noah said, they'll catch that, and obviously it's right, it's wrong too. But yeah, it's that's pretty cool though that you have folks that actually just sit there and check that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and what we found is that really the mass majority of the errors are not that they read the rain gauge wrong. They know how to read the rain gauge. They got the number right, but they actually just entered it wrong. Whether it was the wrong day or a decimal point, just like you said. Yeah.
And a zero is different than no observation, right? Like if someone missed an observation that day because they're out of town or there was an elk in front of the gauge or whatever, that would just show up as a missing observation versus a zero.
Exactly. Yeah. We, as much as we wish we could just assume zeros when people don't report, we've done the research and it does not work. So we have to leave it as NA, non-applicable, or just missing. But we encourage those zeros because they really help some of the data users who are researching drought.
Yeah, I mean it's a cool program, and I mean it's so helpful. But again, and as we continue on, I mean I'm sure you're going to get more and more users. It just seems like weather is like I said earlier, it's so much more front and center now than even like 10 years ago. I don't know if you guys noticed that. It's just I don't know if it's climate change, people or awareness, and it just seems like every day there's something about the weather. Obviously, even if it's not that impactful, it seems like even the national news will find something, to put out there, and then of course you see it on social media. You can't go a day without on social media without seeing something. Whether it was a tornado outbreak somewhere or a big snowstorm or a flood. It just seems like it's more and more it impacts more and more people each day. I think. I don't know.
Yeah, I would also say that there's a little something built into participating in the weather is in watching the weather is there's a little bit of gamification going on. You watch a rainstorm and ooh, how much did I get? And you can maybe think in your head, oh, maybe is this a tenth of an inch? And then you go out to your rain gauge and go, oh, it was only 200ths. So there's a little bit of a gamification going on, and also the fact of not only what's in my gauge, but then once I report it, I go to the map and see what my neighbors had, and it's always fascinating to see the differences.
And not only that, I mean, it's just and snow, of course, is just the biggest thing these days. I think on social media, it's just like everyone needs to get involved with the snowstorm, or oh, what do we need to have that happen, for the snowstorm to occur here on the East Coast? And I'm sure you see it out west too. It's just, uh, and then the one uppedness that's another thing. You go on some of these forums, and of course, you're appreciative of any kind of accumulation that you can see out there. Because we'll check that, and of course, come from CoCoRaHS, but you'll see one person enter. Oh, I got 6.5 inches. Oh yeah, I'm up the road. I got 7.5 here. It's like it's like, how high are we gonna go here with this? It's just like,
Yeah, we're not in an auction.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it seems like the cocoa folks are the level-headed people that they will, of course, they're not up for that. They will put in what they get, like you said, Noah, and leave it at that. Whether it's on the low side of what was expected. I've seen that comment too, like, oh, we only got 4 inches, but the forecast called for 6 to 10. Good. That's more helpful than anything else because everyone was thinking we're gonna get this, and here's what I got instead of I'm gonna end up with 7 or 8 inches here, and it just doesn't match some of the other areas. So it's just like the weather forums are okay too, like that. I don't know if you ever went on like American Weather Forum. That's another big help for us, but that's a lot of cocoa folks too.
A lot of times you'll see comments on the forums that then match, a Coco location when you go and look up the information from there.
Right, and they're very helpful for us during storms too, like all the boards as we call them, and
Again,
um,
dedication. I mean, some people are really, really dedicated to this. Like, I obviously love weather. It's my job. But there's a lot of times where I'll miss stuff or, not report it to even just colleagues because I'm busy or I'm doing something and it really is dedication.
and like you said, no, you're starting to get a few like I guess older folks, retired folks, even maybe they just want to you know focus on weather a little bit and make those reports. I mean, like you said, you've seen an influx of like older folks, retired folks now.
It's not that we've seen an influx. It really, from the get go, that's been our bread and butter. Our retired folks. Typically, they were professionals in weather in the first place, or maybe served in the military doing weather, and afterwards, after their career, they're addicted to the weather and find CoCoRaHS as a neat outlet.
Right. Now, the other thing we go through a lot and we use in our certified snowfall totals are trained spotters. Now, have you heard of that?
Oh yes.
Yeah. Now, where does that fall with CoCoRaHS? I know that's more through the Weather Service, because when you look at the public information statements that come out, after a snowstorm, you'll see public report, trained spotter, National Weather Service employee, things like that. So it's almost like you can kind of look at which observations are probably more, I guess, correct versus like a public comment or a public report of like 10 inches versus a weather service or a trained spotter may have like 5 inches, so you're going to probably put more weight on that observation.
Exactly. The National Weather Service, if folks are interested, they can sign up for a weather spotter class where you learn about different cloud types and how to, spot maybe how a funnel cloud, or and then they learn how to report that to their National Weather Service. But during these weather spotter classes, most of the Weather Service offices will actually save a couple of slides at the end about CoCoRaHS. So it's you're training to be a weather spotter and how to do that. But you want to take it another step further, get yourself a CoCoRaHS gauge and report your precipitation to us. So they promote us in those weather spotter classes, but it's another step beyond being a weather spotter with just, spotting severe weather and reporting it. You're actually reporting your rainfall amount from your backyard. Yeah.
I think there's a link on most weather service forecast offices where you can go to like CoCoRaHS within that office.
I've seen that quite
frequently.
frequently.
And either sign up or, like I said, try to become a CoCoRaHS observer, and like Noah said, how to go through that and get that. So going back to that rain gauge, I mean, you can use. I mean, what are like some of the big companies that serve as your weather, your rain gauges?
We're about 27 years old now, and for the first 25 of our years, there was one manufacturer that designed or that created this rain gauge, or provided, I should say, provided the rain gauge. A company out of Minnesota, I believe, and they actually have had the contract with the National Weather Service for even a couple decades before that. But come 2024 ish, or maybe around 2023, 2024, that company, their patent expired, and another company cropped up that designed basically the exact same rain gauge, 4-inch cylinder with an inner tube on the inside to measure to the nearest hundredth of an inch. But they added a few bells and whistles to it. They made it a little bit bigger so it could hold more water. They added a little pour spout to make it easier to do your measuring, and a handle and some bird spikes. So there's now kind of like a standard version rain gauge that costs roughly $50. And then if you want the fancy Ferrari version,
that's what I was going to say, like upgrade. Yeah,
that's closer to about $65 for
that's
that
not
gauge.
bad at all.
No,
I was honestly expecting it to be more expensive. And so do the gauges have the little like tick marks to measure right on there, or do they pour it into another vessel to then measure it?
They do, and I'm not sure if our video is being recorded here, but I've got the rain gauge in front of me, and what it has is a funnel that funnels the rain into an inner tube that has measurements to the nearest hundredth of an inch. So as the rain fills up this inner tube, all the way to the very top is 1.00, and so each little tick mark is a hundredth of an inch. And after that first inch, it starts overflowing into the outer cylinder, and this whole thing can hold about 12 inches of rain.
And then snow, I was going to say, and then the snow core,
we're on the same page again, Brad.
Yeah, you got it. That's the next the obvious follow-up question. So for snow, we encourage the volunteers to take the funnel and inner tube and take them inside, and you let the snow fall into your outer cylinder. And then the idea is you're not measuring the depth of the snow in your cylinder, you're actually melting that snow and pouring that melted amount into your inner tube to figure out how much water was in that snow. Because, we can all say, oh, I had 6 inches of snow, but what's that mean? We've all shoveled, and sometimes that's like super heavy, and sometimes it's super light.
Yeah, the ratio typically is 10-1. We tell all of our folks, but of course, it could be as high as 20-1 with a dry snow shower, or it could be as low as 5-6-1 with a sleety mess and rain mess, and just like you said, the 2 inches of snow that feels like 8 inches of slop. That's what heart attack snow, as they call it.
Yeah, and that it's funny. You said that that rule of thumb of 10-1. We call it an old wives' tale of 10-1.
Right. It's not as much as I mean, 10-1 is actually just as rare as probably 8-1 as it is 15 or 20-1. It's just an average, right?
Right. Yeah, we tell people if it really was 10-1, you probably got lucky. But that's also sometimes we'll find, we talked about those errors. We'll see sometimes people will just automatically do a 10-1 conversion when they had 6 inches, and so 6/10 of an inch, but we'll flag those, especially if they're not in looking correct compared to nearby neighbors.
And how do they know how to do that snow conversion? Like, how do they determine what the snow to liquid ratio is?
Right, you are asking the CoCoRaHS education coordinator a great question. So again, you're not really doing any converting at all. You're really, I mean, you measure the depth on a flat surface, and then you melt what fell in your gauge. Now, sometimes, and really a lot of times, the wind can really mess up what actually fell in your gauge. So what we encourage people to do is forget what fell in your gauge. It was not representative. Go ahead and take an empty gauge and do a core sample. So you basically cut a biscuit into your snowboard, and you collect a core sample of that snowfall, and then you melt that and measure it. And whatever that measurement is, that kind of determines your ratio. So you're not figuring out a ratio. You're actually measuring the amount, and then that tells you what your ratio was.
Got it. Yeah, so they're finding out the ratio from comparing
exactly
the amount of liquid and the snow depth on their snowboard. That makes sense.
Yeah, and we'll actually, when we do our certified snowfall totals, we also do narratives of the storm, and there are times when even I'm sure Jen does too. I'll put in it became rather windy as the storm exited with gusts up to 40 miles per hour. This led to some drifting and blowing of snow. So I'm not saying that way. It kind of gives us a little bit of leeway, because a lot of folks do have that drifting and blowing snow. So it may be 10 inches over here and 4 inches over here, but hopefully that 6 inches or 7 inches is more representative of an overall area. So
and they'll put that in the comments a lot,
right,
which is
right.
helpful.
Yeah. Folks will say winds 40 to 50 gusts, made it difficult to measure, or I took 4 different measurements across my yard and this was the average. So
yeah, you should see the volunteers in Wyoming.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, with their
it's
wind.
not easy. Measuring snow can definitely be tricky, and really even precipitation. It's the fun old adage, I think is called Segal's Law. If a person with 2 watches, or a person with 1 watch knows what time it is, but a person with 2 isn't quite so sure. And so the same could be said for a rain gauge. If you put out 2 rain gauges next to each other, they might not even agree with each other. And and then what I love to say, my own coined phrase, is that measuring precipitation accurately has plagued humankind since the dawn of time. It feels like it should be easy, but there are issues that come into play that make you question what landed in your gauge was really what fell.
And again, I'm sure Jen has her own CoCo folks, and there's a few that I have in Vermont, New Hampshire, that that I always use and they always report, and I trust their report so much more than maybe it's a public comment here and there. Like this one guy in southern Vermont, he's at a decent elevation, but he'll put in there like, I just got 3 inches of snow off of 0.05, of liquid. And, of course it's a dry snow then, and the ratio is like through the roof, like 40 to 50 to 1. But I trust him, and he'll show a video, and they're like, yeah, it was such a dry, powdery snow that it just, piled up so fast. But, that snow squall produced 4 inches in with 0.05 liquid. I was like, there's no way. But I'll look, and because other times he'll say, yeah, I barely got any snow from this last storm. And, I only got an inch or two of sleet and snow mix. So it's just like, everyone I think has their own favorite CoCo folks within their realm of WeatherWorks that do CSTs.
Yeah, we've got some dedicated folks. I'm glad that you guys have some good ones to watch.
Yeah, and they're repeated folks too, and like I said, that they'll there's like religiously they will put in their amounts every day, and I look forward to them because I was like, oh, the guy that I follow here, he didn't post his amounts yet, and then I'll go like an hour later, oh, there he is, good, and that's what I was waiting for. Some what do we call them, Jen? Like clutch obs or something like that.
Yes, yes, exactly.
I got some clutch obs here.
I love it.
Yeah. So looking ahead now, I mean, what's the future now for CoCoRaHS? I mean, obviously you covered a lot of things, but I mean, what's next?
Boy, that's a good question. We're always trying to create new tools for our volunteers, a little bit of something to give back to them. So we new ways to look at their data, updated maps. We just added photo upload for a couple of our reports. So if you've got hail and submit a hail report, you can now upload a photo that goes with it. So we're always looking to make things cooler and to look at, and more tools for not only our volunteers but even the folks that use the data. We're really always striving to make our data accessible and easy to use for folks. Funding, though, is certainly probably the thing that weighs over us the most.
Right.
I'm sure.
For all these years, we would write grants to NOAA or the National Science Foundation or to NASA, and those are, of course, maybe a little questionable if we're going to be able to write those grants for the next coming year. So we're not always sure what we're going to do. But what's interesting is that when we write and receive a grant and it pays us to do something new, it also then adds a burden to us to keep it going after we've built it. And so throughout all these years, we keep on growing, we keep on getting new volunteers. We're at over 27,000 volunteers that are active right now. If we were a private group selling widgets, our revenue would be looking really good, but we're not. We're a not-profit. We're a volunteer network, and we're giving everything away for free. And so it does, as our bills have gotten more expensive, it's not like we're bringing in any revenue, for instance. So it's becoming a challenge to stay sustainable. But
I was gonna say that was kind of like the last topic I was gonna go over here. I mean, can we what can we ask that? Like, what's the financials? Like, what the grants, and where does that all come from?
Yeah, so some of our funding comes from a group out of Oregon State called the PRISM Climate Group, and they help us out financially, as well as the grants that I just talked about. And then the third leg, which is really a good 1/3 of our budget every year, comes from our volunteers themselves. We will hold a fundraising campaign right at the end of the year into January, and over the last 10 plus years, each year it's really amazing that we have volunteers that are doing work for us and spending their time, and then we turn around and beg them for money too. It's really but people people really love to support us as well. And so each year, about a good third of our revenue stream comes from our own volunteers.
I mean, it's the whole. I mean, I mean, of course, we all know of CoCoRaHS, and then when Mike, our producer, said let's look into this because this would be a good topic, and I did never really thought about how expansive it is and what goes into it and what it entails, and now it's like a whole different view of CoCoRaHS, and I'm so glad, we had someone on to talk about this.
Yeah, me too. It's so insightful to something that you use almost. I mean, I don't use CoCoRaHS every day, but almost every day. And
I use
then
it from November through April, at least every day, November through April, every day. But then, of course, during the summer too, at times.
yeah, and just to then get more of the backstory on it and to understand the like nitty gritty details. I love doing that. I love learning, so I think it's just always just so cool when it's something that you either hear about every day or use to then get that full kind of picture is really great. So
Yeah, a couple of cool statistics I'll throw out there is that the National Weather Service, of all the daily precipitation data that they get and they use on a daily basis, CoCoRaHS data is about 2/3 of that.
I was just gonna say it has to be at least more than 50-50. Yeah.
Yeah, and then when you get into the snow and the snow water equivalent, that data, we're now closer to it's 75% of all the snow water equivalent data that they use comes from CoCoRaHS.
Yeah, and I mean, we use the website too. I mean, we'll go right into that. And it's kind of like Weather Underground. It has you can focus on you know areas and get closer and closer and see more and more cocoa data and it's just and we use it the next day again, even in the summertime, to verify even severe weather reports and things like that, and wind gusts, and all comes from a lot of it comes from cocoa data, and we'll and I think even the storms prediction center, I mean, they'll show like what happened with that previous enhanced area that they had, and try to if enhanced area for severe weather somewhere in Oklahoma, and boom, there is it just kind of they hit the target area just right, and it's just all from that cocoa data.
Storm Prediction Center, National Hurricane Center, the River Forecast Centers, they all use CoCoRaHS data.
Yeah, we use the river data too, even in when we have a tropical setup coming up the northeast, and things like that. But it's yeah, it's amazing. It's again, it's amazing that it's all just um, folks just donating their time to go check out the weather, and uh, it's a neat program for sure.
Yeah, we tell people it's 5 minutes a day. That's all it takes. But more, I would almost say more than anecdotally, it's very consistent. We get feedback from our volunteers. They say, you're giving me a reason to get up in the morning. You're getting me my start to my
That's
day, and
great.
I don't know what I'd do without CoCoRaHS. So it's a very common feedback that we get, that people just love us because of the routine that we give them.
That's great. It's almost like when you're a little kid, getting up to go see the snow and go measure it, and hey, no school today, and we're gonna measure the snow.
Totally, totally.
And now it's like, my kids are like, it's virtual day. It's still school. You know what? But you know what? Some of the schools are actually going back to just regular snow days, which is,
yeah, I think some of them are starting to transition back to that.
there was nothing more exciting than going to bed the night before, thinking that, oh yeah, but there was disappointment too. I grew up in New Jersey too before I moved out to Pennsylvania, and there'd be mornings I wake up like, oh, we're gonna have a snow delay. We at least have a delay. We gotta have a delay. Nothing. It was rain. I was like, oh man, that happens.
Yeah, I remember as a kid there was a phone line that we would call for to find out that. But in Colorado, yeah, it took a lot of snow for them
I
to
can
cancel
imagine the
it. So
thresholds are much different out there. Yeah. Yeah. Nowadays, it's like if there's an inch of snow on the ground, school's canceled just because of liability issues now with buses, and just a little bit of snow is very impactful. And we have a lot of school districts here at WeatherWorks that we forecast for, and they'll call us like 4:30 in the morning because they got to make their decisions. What to do with the school day, and should we delay? Should we so it's a huge thing, but
well, and as you just mentioned schools, I mentioned that earlier, but we do actually have quite a bit of schools throughout the country that are doing this too.
Yeah, I guess that'd be fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great project for 3rd through 5th grade. It meets the standards for math and science and geography. So teachers love it.
No,
Yeah,
it's
that's great.
yeah, I'm sure some budding meteorologists will come out of that too down the road. But
I would have loved to have that in 3rd grade. Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
absolutely.
Yeah, we actually have volunteers that are not only still doing it as adults, but they've actually become weather professionals, and they'll say that my start was CoCoRaHS when I was a teenager.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
That's great.
All right. Well, Jen, you got anything else?
I think that is it. Thank you so much, Noah, for joining us today. That was great.
You got any plugs for us, Noah? I mean, feel free. I mean, obviously, everyone knows the CoCoRaHS website and the apps on the phone, things like that. So, I mean, anything else you want to add?
Well, just we're always looking for more volunteers. Whether you think you've got someone nearby or you're totally out in a rural area, we would love to have you, and your data would be super valuable.
All right. Well, I guess that's about it. Noah, again, thanks for joining us today. And
Thank you again.
for Jen and Mike, our producer, of course, I'm Brad Miller. Follow us on Facebook and on X and Instagram and any other social media outlet. We are on there. Thanks again.
That's a wrap on this week's episode of the Weather Lounge podcast. Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow us on all your favorite podcasting platforms so you don't miss out on future episodes. Have questions or comments? Just email us at weatherlounge@weatherworksinc.com. We'd love to hear your feedback. You can also learn more about our parent company, WeatherWorks, by visiting weatherworksinc.com and checking them out on social media as well. Thanks again for joining us, and until next time, stay curious and stay weather-wise.